All right, everyone, welcome. It's another Friday, so it must be another Q&A with Alan and Marshall. How you doing? I'm Marshall Atkinson.
I'm Alan Howe with Easy Way.
And today we have some guests. Instead of one guest, we have got two. What happened, Alan?
Because we don't know what we're doing. We have to have people come in and just handle this for us. We got to, what do we say? How do you get better? Surround yourself with people who are better than yourselves. And that's what we did.
That's pretty easy to do, I think.
Pretty easy.
So Alan, why don't you introduce them?
I've never met them. No, first we have, she's been on the show with us before. We call her the of the industry. And Allie, this is all little effects. She is the badass of the industry now. Yeah. I'll still never forget meeting you in 2017 down at Max Profit. And man, so glad. But Allie Banholzer from Wear Your Spirit Warehouse. And then we had Jed Seifert, co-founder of Stakes Manufacturing. And Jed and I were talking. I'm going to say reintroduced myself to him just at the Apparel Summit last month. But Stakes is a digital printer, globally does work, and just an incredible company. But Jed is here. We're excited to have him on because this is a topic that is near and dear to both Allie and Jed's heart. So, Jed, thank you for coming. And Stakes is out of Cleveland, Ohio, but Jed is from his home in Maryland.
Yep. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
And I'm coming to you live from Maryland, too. So you got two Marylanders on here.
Exactly.
You better watch out.
Well, and that's where I told him, when we talked about this, he said, I've heard of Allie. I don't know her. I go, she lives in Maryland, too. He goes, well, I live in Maryland. So I go, she's out of Maryland. He goes, I live in Maryland. And yeah, so you guys are, I know you guys have conversed on this topic and yeah, about an hour apart. So that's cool.
Great. So if you're just joining us, thank you for joining. We would love it if you would say hello and let us know where you're watching from. Also, don't forget that this is a question and answer show. So we really need your comments. We need your questions. And if you want to ask something that's completely off topic, go ahead. We're here for you. That's our job, is to help you with whatever's going on. And also, if you're watching this later, because I know a lot of people do that, or listening on our podcast, Audible things. So let us know that you're watching. Say hello there also. That's always kind of fun. But if you could do us a small favor and share that you're tuning in and watching, that would be really great. We're always trying to grow our audience, and we would appreciate that help. So
we're trying to do better. We have a new Instagram page too, Marshall.
Yeah. So I know Alan's been bugging me for at least a year. I finally got around to doing it, and it's Q&A. What happened? Are you hitting the buttons?
I have not touched them. Right there.
Q&A with Alan Marshall with the underscores there. That's where you can find it on Instagram. We haven't got a Threads account yet because I don't even know anything about that yet. It just launched yesterday. So, if you've got a Threads account, good for you. I don't know what's going on with that or even if it's worthwhile to join, but we'll talk about that next week, I'm sure. But anyway.
And to say I've been bugging Marshall about a year, if you've never met Marshall, he's kind of a control guy. He has things the way he does it. So I can do this. And he's going, no, I got it. And, he's not a guy who can put it in a headlock and say, just give me the project and tear it away from him. Because he is 4 inches taller than me, and I am a tall guy. So I have to stand on a stepladder to do that. So it's not like I didn't offer to handle the project.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So, all right. So what do you say, Alan? We say hello to some folks, and then we'll get our commercial going, and then we'll just talk about the rest of the show. So William's here. Say hey, y'all.
Yeah.
And then Greg Kitson's here.
Talking about badasses. Greg, we miss you. Hope things are going well for you.
So I saw somewhere on the Academy thing you might be coming to Atlanta for Printing United, and hopefully I'll see you there.
Oh, that would be incredible, Greg. Yes.
So I think you were asking about the dinner, so that's good. We'd love to hang out. Karen's here. How you doing? And all right, so let's run our commercial, and then we will get the party started. As soon as I can find the thing here.
GSG, The combination of over half a century of knowledge with industry-leading technology and the customer at the center of everything that we do. Graphic Solutions Group is a powerhouse distributor of traditional screen, sign, wide format digital printing, embroidery, and textile decorating. We are committed to our customers, providing support, educational, and consulting services. Your success is our success. We've seen these industries grow and change in our 70 years. One thing never changes: GSG's dedication providing the best products and services available. We've been around, we'll be around, from the highs and the lows, standing right here with you. GSG, the right products, right away.
All right. And look, Alan, we got Beppy in the house.
Beppy
What's going on with
Quigley
our
from
buttons?
from Italy. Beppy, so glad you're here.
Yeah. And also Missy Embry from Oklahoma. Good seeing you, Missy. I know she's making a road trip down to Louisiana right now to see some family. So glad you're tuning in. All right. So let's kick the party started, and let's talk about you guys. So I'm just not touching the buttons the rest of the day. I don't know what's going on. It keeps flashing. So why don't we start with you, Allie? Ladies first, right? Talk about your business a little bit. And then we're talking about a special topic today. So why don't you introduce what we're talking about and how and what you guys are doing?
Sure, absolutely. So I am Allie Banholzer. I am the owner of Wear Your Spirit Warehouse. We have been in business for 17 years. We're located in Southern Maryland, about 30 miles south of Annapolis on the Chesapeake Bay, otherwise known as God's Country. And we have a full production facility. We do silk screen, embroidery, sublimation, laser, and wide format printing. We do some bling when we're asked. And today we are here to talk about diversity and inclusion, something that's near and dear to my heart. We go as part of our corporate mission and culture. We specifically seek to hire individuals with disabilities and find meaningful employment for them that either is meaningful in a way that they want to stay with us for a number of years, or meaningful in a way that will help them build their resume so they can launch into careers of interest and fulfillment for themselves. We do that in several different ways with several different partnerships, and I don't want to take up too much time, so I think we're going to dive into that more a little bit later in the show, but that's kind of the overview.
Okay, great. And Jed, why don't you talk about Stakes Manufacturing for a little bit?
Absolutely. My name is Jed, obviously, co-founder of Stakes Manufacturing. I started the business with my best friend since I was 5 years old. And we are one of the largest print-on-demand B2B providers in the country. We use a combination of direct-to-garment and direct-to-film production. While I'm a fellow Marylander with Allie here, and I actually live in Bethesda, Maryland, my business is actually in Eastlake, just outside of Cleveland. We have a former Walmart turned into a production facility, and my brother's got Fragile X, which is the leading known genetic cause of autism. Him getting a job in the mailroom of the Securities Exchange Commission 23 years ago really changed his life. Gave him financial independence, the ability to move out of my parents' house, pay his own bills, find happiness, purpose, work friends, something that we all strive for and a lot of us take for granted. And, when we started Stakes Manufacturing, our goal was to create opportunities, life-changing opportunities like that for other individuals with disabilities, as well as beyond the four walls of our building, do speaking engagements just like this to really champion disability inclusion in the print industry, because we think it's a perfect fit. Help kind of break down preconceived notions and stigmas, and help guide people on how they can get started, because there's some really incredible resources out there that don't cost the employer anything. So looking forward to diving into all of that with you guys. Currently 10% of have about 225 employees. 10% of our staff has developmental disabilities. We also have a school to work transition program where we have 12 interns a semester, juniors and seniors from the local high school system. We get trained to get on-site job mentors and really get trained to become independent workers. And then at the end, when they're transitioning out of high school, they get the opportunity for full-time employment if it's a good fit for them and a good fit for us. And we've got some of our best employees from that. Our top warehouse employee out of 40 is a gentleman with autism who graduated from our school to work transition program. Our top shipper out of 35 is a gentleman with autism who applied just because he saw all of our ads said that we hire people with all abilities. So we're not here to talk about charity and warm and fuzzies. We're here to talk about meaningful employment to the employer, because we're all running for-profit businesses, and we're also talking about meaningful employment to the employee. So looking forward to diving into kind of all of it with you guys and kind of helping guide people and getting started themselves.
So, Jed, having a family member that was struggling and you saw the impact of going out and actually getting a job, that was your inspiration. And that's so remarkable. I'm curious, Allie, do you have a similar story, or you saw a neighbor or a family friend or something? How did you get the idea?
So multiple avenues, but to begin with, I think most people here know that I'm a Gold Star spouse. My husband died on active duty. He died from service-connected toxic exposure and had glioblastoma, which is primary brain cancer. Through that, he lost physical mobility and he lost his ability to speak. And we had many service providers in our home helping us navigate that and learning about that. Also learned about a lot of adaptive technology so that we could still communicate and things that way. After his passing, my daughters became unified partners with Special Olympics. And that really opened my eyes, made me much more compassionate and empathetic, and watching and listening to, Special Olympics doesn't have any age limit, so can be from very young kids to adults, and just kind of watching and listening to that community and some of the struggles got me very interested and made it very close to my heart to be able to provide meaningful, purposeful employment.
That's
And
great.
I had the company and the ability, and so we partnered with our local school district. We also work with certificate-bound students who may not otherwise graduate or may not otherwise be able to find employment, and we also partner with the ARC and other disability service providers.
So it's really your life's journey has led you to this.
Yes.
Right? That'd be fair to say, I think. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say, so I loved, Jed, how you put it, that this is not a warm, fuzzy, charitable thing. Well, in our minds, we want to think that, I know, and part of that we'll talk about of breaking down these stereotypes and stuff like that. But this is, as you said, you guys are for-profit businesses. This is meaningful, profitable, employees to help them, like whatever you should strive for all your employees to have a meaningful, a profitable, stable individual life.
Yeah, I mean, our job as leaders, owners, managers is to really focus on people's abilities and cultivate those and mitigate their weaknesses and disabilities, right? Whether they have disabilities or not, that's what we should be doing with every employee, and tailoring how we train people and how we set them up for success. And, currently, 1 in 5 people in the United States identify as having some sort of disability. And on the developmental disability side, there's an 80% unemployment rate, which is staggering. And it's not because people don't want to work. It's because people won't hire them. And we're in an industry among pretty much every other industry right now that everybody's struggling to hire and talking about the challenges finding employees. Yet there's this untapped resources that's ready to go to work for you. Be excited to go to work. And while we are, as a company, we aren't doing it for the warm and fuzzies, and the employee, is not as well. But, the impact that it has on other employees and the warm and fuzzies it gives them, and, the ability to come to work and feel like you're making a meaningful impact, not just pushing cotton cardboard around a warehouse, is really I think it has a tremendous impact on the business, and we're going to get into some of the ROI and benefits on the business later in this call.
Awesome.
That's great. And this is the definition of leadership. Leadership is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, right? So you guys are definitely doing that, and that's great. So let's talk about the benefits, right, and the value that you get from participating in this type of decision making, right? So you guys at one point didn't know anything about it, and you had to kind of figure it out. And after probably some bit of time, you've learned, wow, this is what's amazing. This is what we get out of it, which far surpasses the effort it takes to actually do it, right? So kind of talk about that. Allie, why don't you go first?
Sure. I mean, if we want to talk nuts and bolts in business and ROI, there are tax benefits. You can get a portion of salaries paid back on your taxes. I think there's 9 different categories in taxes that, whether you employ veterans, whether you employ convicted felons, individuals with disability is one of those categories. So there's a tax benefit there. There are often many programs where during the training of your employee, the state may pay their salary or a portion of their salary. There's also, for me, working with the ARC and also working with our local school district, all of my employees with disabilities come with a job coach or an aide. And also I have found, particularly my employees that have come through the ARC, they have to go through employment training prior to being able to go out on interviews and things this way. And I will tell you, those employees are the ones that show up on time, always make the phone call if they're not going to come in, stay until it's time to go home, take the initiative to find extra work around the warehouse. If they've already completed their job duties, they're going around finding other things where they can help other people assist. And this is a lot of training that I never had to provide them. Beyond that, yes, there are warm fuzzies. We've gotten a lot of community recognition. We've received awards for our involvement within the disability community, which has given us a lot of social media presence, social media PR. For example, the ARC came in and followed Tyler around one day shooting video of what he does for us in his job, and then presented us with an award. And then at their annual banquet, this is the video they showed for meaningful employment. And so we were highlighted, he was highlighted, and the ability to do this was emphasized. And so that made, they have a lot of donors that are big businesses and could be potential customers for us. And obviously they have a heart for the ARC because they're at their annual banquet and donating money. And now they say, here's a company that can provide, our uniforms or apparel or whatever it is. And they're like, well, we're going to go to them first because they have the same heart that we do.
Right. And currently, or, how many people do you have that you're employing, and what do they do for you?
So I have 9 employees and 2 have disabilities. One comes from our county schools and one comes from the ARC. Tyler has been with us from the ARC for going on 4 years now, and he started in the screen room, washing out screens, doing some basic janitorial work and things that way. We've trained him up. He now does full setup on the press. Wow. He sets it up, registers, does that. Then our press operators can come in and run the job. He, is on the press when shirts are being run. With his abilities, it's challenging him for him to load shirts straight. So that's really the only reason he doesn't do full press operations. So our press operators come in, but he's re-inking the screens during runs. He's pulling shirts. He's putting them through the dryer. He's gathering them at the end of the dryer. He's doing QC. He's sorting them, doing a count before they go to shipping. So, almost that full process that we hire a lot of people for.
So basically what you did is you just got what every person wants. You got a model employee.
I have a model employee.
Plain and simple. One that comes
Plain
in on
and
time,
simple.
works hard, and keeps moving up.
And
Couldn't
keeps
ask for
moving
anything
up.
more, disability or not.
And what about your other employee?
So my other employees is a little bit of an interesting story. She has cerebral palsy. She is nonverbal and does not have use of any of her limbs. She is wheelchair bound. She came to us from the school district. A girlfriend of mine is her physical therapist, and she came to me. We were eating breakfast one morning, and she's like, I just don't even know what to do. Do you have any ideas? Our local school district has certificate programs, but in order to graduate with this certificate, these students have to have a work internship, and she could not find anybody that would hire her for an internship, even though the school system pays the internship. It costs $0 for the employer. Nobody could figure out a way to give her meaningful work that would qualify for this internship. And I said, I don't care what it is, we'll figure it out. Bring her in, we will find something that is meaningful. And so I met with Mimi, is her name. I met with Mimi's mom. I met with Mimi's aide. I met with her adaptive technology, or the adaptive technology person for the schools, and her physical therapist. And Mimi communicates through a computer with eye gaze. She's a very intelligent individual. She has a computer that she can look in different, there's a bar on it. It follows her eyes wherever she looks. She can type on the keyboard. She can do Excel spreadsheets. She can do all of that. So Mimi now is documenting online stores for us. It's a gap that we had. It's something we should have. We're a small business. You know, the small businesses, we don't always get around to the SOPs and the documentation. She's doing that very needed job for us of documenting stores, helping write up some SOPs. And then also she'll be a senior in high school, and she is very well loved at her high school. And I'm a 51-year-old white woman, and my kids are both in college now. I have no idea what 14 to 18-year-olds want to wear and buy for spirit wear, and which will also meet the school dress code. So Mimi's going through our distributors and catalogs and picking out items that we can update our online stores for spirit wear and saying, this is what's going to sell. This is what they're going to buy. And now we have figured out how she can use Adobe Illustrator through eye gaze.
Wow.
And she's creating designs, and we're going to do a special project that's Mimi's line for her high school, because she is a very popular girl, and I guarantee you that's going to bring profit to us.
Great. And are you going to share it with her?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
Not on the spot live.
Damn, how many witnesses are here? No, I'm kidding. No, of course. It's going to be
yeah.
I'm going to talk to Mimi and find out what's in her heart. And I don't know tax-wise and things that way that I can give it directly to her, other than maybe an employee bonus. But there may be something that's near and dear to her heart that we can do as a fundraiser and donate the proceeds there.
Right.
So it sounds like it's a high school student. You have now a high school student that part-time or whatever, just like I did when I was in high school. And now when she's out of high school, you have a trained full-time employee. In fact, if she can do Excel spreadsheets, she's above me. I still cannot do those. I am awful at it.
Right. And we're not there yet, but we're going to train her to build online stores. Like, perfect. We build upwards of 10 online stores a week. They're time consuming. I've got another employee that can build online stores. We've only been working with her for about a month, so we just haven't gotten to that training yet. But with that, before she ever came to work, she comes with an aide because she is not physically able to use a restroom and different things that way. So she comes with an aide that comes with her. We don't have to assign anybody special for those tasks, so to say. I meet with her for about 5 minutes when she shows up at the beginning of her shifts. I give her her tasks, her marching orders, and she goes off and does them and then reports back to me before she leaves. And I was going somewhere with this. But before, part of this internship, before she could get hired for us, she had to turn in a cover letter and a resume to us that she had built. So, we get to help her build a resume, whether she does end up staying with us or whether she graduates and goes on. But the fact that she's learning skills on writing SOPs and doing more business focused spreadsheets that are practical, it benefits all of us.
That's
Right now,
amazing.
right now, her email box is filling up with people watching this going, I need someone that can build online stores.
Yeah,
The
right.
offers are going to her right now.
I'm not telling you her last name.
All right. Well, that's great, Allie. Thank you for sharing that. Jed, why don't you talk about a couple of you folks?
Yeah, and I also want to add on to the benefit side of it and how your
Yeah.
business will benefit, because I think at the end of the day, I mentioned we're a for-profit business, as most of the listeners probably are as well, and I think that it's important to understand the benefits here. I think that when we started hiring folks with disabilities, it became very apparent that it taught our entire company empathy. It brought our employees closer together. Departments that didn't work as seamlessly together or as friendly together. It built this sort of teamwork atmosphere. And while we're only sort of I consider a medium-sized business, it really kind of shrunk us down to be more of like a family atmosphere, and really changed things. We started off in our warehouse department because we thought it was the most natural place to start. And it was also where we had our most empathetic manager. And it's important to be transparent with your leadership and management team about what you're going to do, because they're going to have some, they might have a gag reflex, like, oh my God, you're going to throw all this stuff on my plate. I've never worked with people with disabilities. I don't know how I'm going to handle all this. And, I sat down with our warehouse manager on day one. I said, hey, look, if this impacts your ability to hit your KPIs, you've got numbers to hit, we've got a business to run. I need to know about it, right? Don't just not say anything, because this is near and dear to our hearts, right? As co-founders of this business. And, I came back to him about a month later and said, hey, how's it going? He said, it's going great. And I go, but seriously, tell me. He's like, is it slowing you guys down? He goes, look, no. He goes, sure, you might have a little more upfront training with the individual employee. He goes, but you're some of my best employees. And, I used to come to work and just move boxes around. And now I come to work and I'm impacting people's lives. It's like, I've never felt that in a position. So while as a business, we don't do it for the warm and fuzzies, their coworkers are getting that, right? They're getting that sense of fulfillment of helping people and making, a meaningful impact on people's lives, right? A lot of them haven't been exposed to people with disabilities, right? So it's also kind of broadening their horizons. And I've mentioned earlier on, some of our best employees from a KPI standpoint on, output and performance and reliability are folks with disabilities. And when you're getting your butts kicked in KPIs by folks that have a lot of challenges, it's a motivating factor too. So it gets people to work harder, work together better. And you also talk about employee retention. So we talk all about the struggles of hiring people these days. Keeping people is just as big of a struggle these days, right? So when you give people more meaning at their work, it keeps them longer. It stops people from leaving you to make an extra $1 an hour to go work at Amazon, where they're just going to be some number, because they feel, they feel the culture, they feel the impact, they feel like they're a part of something that's bigger, right? And that's what we're trying to accomplish, right? It's not just about selling T-shirts. It's about selling T-shirts while making a social impact. And then from a sales perspective, the new generation is much more in tune with companies that make social impact, and they want to see people doing stuff beyond just their core business. So I think it will help drive business, and people want to work with people who are doing good, whether it's helping people with disabilities or whatever else. So, right, not only should you do it, but you should scream it from the mountaintops so that people know, hey, excuse me, I found out Lyft has a program that helps people with disabilities get to their work. I don't use Uber anymore. I go with Lyft. It's pretty simple. So
I didn't know that, and I've driven for Lyft before and use it all the time. I like it better than Uber. I had no idea about that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I think so. We've seen a tremendous amount of impact. We've seen, our disabled employees have the highest attendance rate. They have the lowest turnover rate. We talk about, everybody thinks about people with disabilities and they think low skilled repetition. Now, repetition is key, because people with disabilities learn from repetition, and they find it at home. right? So whereas folks without disabilities might find, putting 1,000 hang tags on a day monotonous, or, just doing that same task over and over every day. And that's usually what leads to those high turnover rates. Whereas people with disabilities, again, they flourish in that environment, right? That's the routine that they're looking for. So it's improved our turnover rates have improved for not just our disabled employees, but our non-disabled employees. And again, it's really become, it started as a vision of me and my business partner, but it's really become a core part of our company's culture. And we started in the warehouse, and then we expanded beyond that. We wanted to get buy-in from that manager and prove to the rest of the company, like, hey, this isn't just warm and fuzzies, right? These can be great employees. We've since expanded. We have folks who are in our heat press division who are pressing shirts with 300-degree, irons, and we've had to think about, all right, well, what safety things should we be in tune with to make sure that people don't get hurt? When the reality is all the things that we were doing to accommodate or make sure things were safe, we should have been doing all along for all employees, whether they had disabilities or not, right? Tailoring a little bit of our training. Some people are more visual learners, more pictures versus words, or more sort of on-job shadowing as opposed to just learning by reading. Those type of accommodations have kind of opened up and enabled us to open up other departments. So we have folks in pressing, we got folks in shipping, we got folks in receiving, we got folks in custodial. We also, we have a spectrum of disabilities that people work with. And while we talk about low-skilled repetition, high-skilled repetition is just as important for people with disabilities, and people don't really understand that. They think about disabilities and it's like, oh, this person can just pick up boxes or push a broom. The reality is, Allie already mentioned, she's got a lady with cerebral palsy who's doing spreadsheets, more advanced than Alan can. Well, we also have a lady.
That's not a high bar either.
Well, yeah, I should set the bar higher than that.
It's more advanced than Alan, disability or not.
Right. I mean, we've got there's people with autism and people with all types of disabilities that are even in C-level positions in companies, and some of them about, some of them you don't, right? We've got a lady with cerebral palsy who applied just because she saw that we hired people with all abilities, and she applied for a job folding T-shirts, and she was slow. I sat down with her week 2 and said, hey, tell me your story. Turns out she's got a degree in cybersecurity from a major university. So, we put people in these boxes. Now she does inventory reports, customer reports. She's in the computer doing things I can't do all day long, right? Where she flourishes, right? So all too often we put people with disabilities into this very small box of things that they can do. But the reality is there's very few things in my business that people with disabilities can't do. It's just a matter of finding the right person for the right job. And just like any person, whether they have disabilities or not, you're going to have some people that are successful in their role, some people that aren't. You need to hold them to real standards. And if it doesn't work, you cut ties just like any other employee, right? You don't just keep them on board because they have disabilities. No, you hold them to the same level of standards that you want to hold them to. The only difference is you might be training them a little different, or you might have to make some accommodations that make them be more successful. But we've seen it really, it's really improved our company culture substantially. And I think it's really brought our team together, and, it's also trained our managers to be better managers and how they manage folks without disabilities, because they should be tailoring their management styles and structures for everybody. Not just,
I was just going to say that. Shouldn't that be the bar for everybody?
Yeah, like to Jed's point, I can't tell you the number of times we have done love languages for business to find out how our employees communicate and receive appreciation. We've done Clifton Strengths to, the 36 Strengths Finder and things this way. And we're doing this for our employees. And I know what the strengths of my graphic designer is, or my accountant, and what their weaknesses are. And they would be considered able-bodied individuals. So it's no different. Everybody excels, and everybody have been given gifts, and it's just finding those and capitalizing on them. And to Jed's point also about repetitive jobs and hang tags and things that way, every week in our staff meeting we start the week with shout outs, and you have to shout out another employee for catching them doing something well. And 9 times out of 10, Tyler will shout out Cheyenne and say, thanks for giving me screens to clean. The rest of us think cleaning screens is the absolute worst job in the shop, right? Nobody likes to clean screens. Of course not. Right? But Tyler loves cleaning them. So he's like, he gets to use the power washer. He's all in. Let's do it. And he's thanking her for clearing out screens so that he has more screens to clean. Alan, he's also the one that will always keep track of the dip tank and come tell me like, hey, time, let's go.
I mean, why do I think I'm flying down there and getting video of all this?
So
come on down, let's do it.
So I have a question, because I know people, not everybody is nice. Have you had an instance where somebody didn't like this or didn't want to work with this particular person with a handicap, or there was just resistance? And how did you overcome that? Maybe that didn't happen. I'm just like throwing that out there because I've worked with some real jerks in my career, and I was just wondering if you had to overcome that.
But Marshall, haven't you also fired some people who were real jerks that couldn't work with people too?
I have fired people, but but I was just curious in this particular scenario, how did you manage that? And what happened?
Breaking down stereotypes and stigma.
So for us, I had one employee who is what I would refer to as a kingdom builder. We practice where we have overlap and backup. So if somebody's out for a week, vacation, sick, whatever, somebody else can step in and do that job, right? We're a small company. But they wanted their kingdom. They wanted to be able to do it, and they didn't want anybody else to do it. Well, it was also a job that we could train Tyler to assist with. And it was made so complicated and so difficult, and they wouldn't buy into the repetitiveness. But you know what? They wouldn't have done that if it had been me that they were training.
Yep.
Because they wanted it to be their kingdom. So it wasn't an issue with Tyler. It was an issue with this employee. And we had to sit down and have a heart-to-heart and say, no, he is our mission. He is what we want. And you're either going to spend the time to do it, or he's not the one that's going to be gone.
So that term kingdom builder, I'm going to expand on that because I use the same term. You're the only one I've ever heard of use the same term.
Oh yeah.
Kingdom building. Yeah. So where I see it, and you don't have to shout out your employee, is that a lot of times in our industry, I find it more with guys that run automatics and presses, where they have it set up and they will not train anybody. They will not do anything. They will not tell anybody how to do anything, including the owners and stuff. And they have locked in their own little kingdom. They walled themselves in their own little kingdom because that's where they're the king and master of. And they feel like that they have job security because of their insecurity. And it is a cancer from within inside of the company.
Right. And that's what I was just going to say. What does it speak more to? Their insecurity.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and we've seen it on both sides. I mean, so while some jerks are going to be jerks with everybody, right? If they're going to be jerks with all employees, right? And those are the ones that you want to get rid of anyway. We've also seen a lot of employees who maybe weren't sort of teamwork driven and might fall in this kind of category of kingdom builders, as you guys so nicely put it, who actually have changed because of it, right? Because now they're going, oh, well, I'll help that person. But I think the key to all of it is transparency, right? This is not something that you want to do. You just throw into the mix without like talking to your employees about it, talking to them about the vision, talking about how you're going to do it. Most importantly, talking to them about how you're going to support them, right? Yep. Because most apprehension to this comes from incorrect preconceived notions that, oh, this is going to be such a burden to me. These guys aren't going to perform. I'm going to be in over my head. And what we talk about and why Allie and I do a lot of these speaking engagements is really to help educate the industry on disability employment service providers who will help you find, screen, hire, onboard, and train employees at no cost to the employer. I don't know if you guys can hear my kids yelling in the back.
They're killing each other right now. It's awesome. We love it.
Hey, I'm going to go downstairs. Sorry.
I was waiting to hear the belt's coming off. No, that would have been
Well,
strong.
always professionalism at its finest.
Absolutely. No, it's awesome.
I'm just sitting here going, is it loud enough that they hear?
Are they still kicking the dog? What's going on over there?
I'm waiting
Right.
for a basketball to come through the window. It'll be great. It'll be just
Right.
classic.
So these disability employment service providers will help you find, screen, hire, onboard, and train disabled employees, and train your managers how to work with disabled employees at zero cost to the employer.
Yep.
So you're talking about getting a free hiring agency, and then a on-site. Some will provide an on-site job coach. It just depends on the individual, depends on their setup, it depends on the state. But again, they'll help train your managers on how to manage these folks. And every lesson that your managers learn on how to train these folks are lessons that actually apply to training all individuals, right? It's all about tailored training. It's about understanding your employees, understanding how they learn, whether they have disabilities or not. Some people learn from visual, some people learn from hearing, right?
Absolutely.
You got to know those things about your employees. So one is, transparency. And then two is sometimes you got to help them go beyond that, right? So the job coach really help in situational things like, hey, we had a guy who was during this break was turning around signs. It was like a nervous tick. We spoke to the job coach. The job coach spoke to the individual. They also spoke to the parents. The employer's not going to call the parents, but the job coach will do that. It became a non-issue. Now we've also had issues that weren't clean cut like that, and we've had to get rid of a couple of employees. Right? We've had employees that haven't worked. We've had disabled employees that haven't worked well with our other employees. Right? So it can go either way. Right? So, but you're not. That's with any human being. Right? You're not going to bat 1,000 with anything. Right? So I think leveraging these job coaches and these service providers really sets you up for success. I think we've gone above and beyond that too, because again, I think a lot of people's apprehension is just because they don't have somebody with disabilities in their circle, right? They don't have an immediate family member, or maybe they have like a cousin or something, but they've just never really been in a professional situation or anything outside of a family event. So we work with the OOD, which is the Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. We've had them come out and do some training sessions with our leadership staff, teaching on sort of etiquette with employees with disabilities, how to work with disability employees, how to not put them in a box, and we found out that there's, forklift drivers that are legally blind. Like that blew my mind, like how you could create an accommodation.
Hold on. How does that work?
Because there's a percentage blindness where you can't see any peripheral, right? You can kind of only see out the front, right? So you're legally blind. So they installed different mirrors, like how you have your side view mirror in the car. Just imagine a lot more mirrors. So while I can only see this limited kind of scope, it allows me to see all over the place. And that was like a moment in this meeting where our employees' minds were blown, like, oh my God, we did
like this happened with me.
Right. We never even thought that was possible. And the reality too is a lot of people are scared to get involved because they're scared to screw up. We screwed up every which way. You screw up with all employees. Okay. I didn't know that deaf employees didn't want to be called hearing impaired until I had deaf employees. They just want to be called deaf. Right. We had a impromptu town hall.
Wait. Say that again, Jed. They don't want to be called hearing impaired, or
they don't want to be called hearing impaired. That's an old school term now. They want to be called just deaf, right? Which is okay. I didn't know that until I had some employees. We had a town hall. I was so excited. Last year we won APSI, who's the National Disability Employment Service Provider trade organization, named us National Employer of the Year, which was a tremendous honor last year. And we were so proud of it. I had an impromptu town hall where I announced it to everybody. I thought I'd set it up perfectly so everybody would be included. I had an app that would transcribe what I was saying so our deaf employees could read it. I had their manager next to them in case they needed help. And I put them front and center so they could read my lips as well. It was a disaster. The app didn't work. I didn't realize that, certain individuals read lips a lot better than other individuals. And they didn't feel included. And I'm sitting here talking about inclusion and getting this award. So, we learned from it. I redid the meeting again just for those employees. But we learned our lessons, right? That happens with all employees, right? And that's also why we talk to our job coaches, How do we deal with this situation? What do we do if somebody says this? We also help to train our employees. And it's not to burden them with more responsibilities, just to teach them how to work with this type of employee. And again, a lot of the stuff you learn in this capacity has real world application to every employee you have, whether they have disabilities or not.
Okay.
So basically, it's coming off the fear of it. I mean, even as we were talking before the show, certain words and stuff, we're trying to be gracious. And I said disabled. You said, yeah, or a handicapped. You said, no, it's disabled and stuff. And sometimes I imagine as an employer, there's the fear. That's awesome to hear of the mistakes you're going to make and all that. And probably how gracious they are too. Saying,
I think they also fear that they also feel like, how do I train them? When you're going, all right, well, there's a service provider who actually will do that, help you do that for free. So they'll do it for you, right? They'll basically serve as a hiring manager and a training manager for you. And, let's be very transparent here. There are certain employees that take longer to train because they have disabilities than others. But most of those employees are getting trained for positions that have the highest turnover rate, and they have the longest retention rate. So while maybe I have to spend an extra couple days training somebody, if I don't have to rehire for that position every 6 to 9 months,
you win.
And these person can be with me for years, it's paying dividends within the first year of having that employee on board.
Right. Hey, so go ahead, Allie, and then we have some comments I want to get to. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say, for anybody that's listening live now or later, my biggest barrier was that fear that I was going to say something wrong and I was going to look like an asshole. And so I literally finally, when the individual from the ARC that came in, she doesn't do the job placement, but she actually came in to vet us as a company and evaluate us and make and look around. And she also helped me come up with, this would also be an area that you could hire for. And this would be an area that you could hire for. Opened my eyes as they evaluated our company and if we would be a good fit. But I finally just looked at her and I said, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but I don't know. I don't know the correct terminology. I don't know how to not be offensive. And that's what was holding me back. And yes, just communicate. Just talk. It's okay to not know something. We're all here to learn.
Right. That's great. So I'm not going to get to all the comments, but I wanted to share a couple if the buttons work. Greg says, I worked with a sheltered workshop to provide job coaches with every placement. That's great. And then Chris says, over half the screen printers I've met, mostly online, are asses. Surprising more than the rigs or a mechanic shop, if you can believe it or not.
I can believe it.
Yeah. And then our good buddy Brian says, good morning. We had a legally blind sailor with no depth perception. He couldn't drive, but was great with inventories and paperwork. So everybody has their strengths, and thanks for those comments. And I think this is a really great segue into just how do you guys break down the stigmas of this with your employees, with maybe some suppliers or customers or whatever? We all have these perceptions that are rattling around in our heads that don't really match up to reality, right? And what have you guys done and what have you learned?
I think we've started on the training side with employees, but I think once you kind of get things going, it becomes a lot easier because once you have great employees, I mean, you don't really have to prove the concept anymore, right? It's like, hey, just look at the numbers, right? Who's our fastest warehouse picker and has the highest level of accuracy? Oh, it's a gentleman with autism. All right, well, we've now broke down any stigma you could say about whether these employees can do this. We had a beautiful moment that I witnessed a few weeks ago for the first time where I saw a disabled employee training a new disabled employee, which blew my mind. It was like, oh, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen, right? So I think really it's about putting the people in position to success. The first person you hire might not work. We had one of the companies we work with came in, saw what we do, and they said, oh, this is amazing. We tried it, but it didn't work. We hired 2 employees, it didn't work. Number one, they didn't have a job coach or a job supports, which is automatically setting them up. I've been involved in the community like Allie my whole life, Special Olympics, all that stuff. I'm not equipped to manage this without a job coach and these service providers. So transparency, education, providing people with supports, and then follow up, right? Because again, we've had employees that people were afraid to fire because they were afraid it was going to upset me, the co-founder whose brother's got disabilities, right? And you got to wipe that. You got to really set the precedent that that's not the case.
So you have to be clear with the expectations and talk about outcomes more than anything, right? Clarity, I think, is your best friend here.
Yeah.
Right. And when you get into a situation you don't know how to handle, you call the job coach. Always call the job coach. And they're going to tell you, hey, well, they're going to try to fix it. And if they can't, move on. Just like any other employee. Hey, Jim's not the right fit. Let's go find somebody else. Right.
Do the employees that, you might want to move on from, do they recognize that you might not be a good fit? And it's like, you know what, this isn't working for me because of whatever. And they will self take them out of the picture. Does that happen?
We've been doing this for a few years now. We just had one of the first situations that was like uncomfortable because we had to get rid of an employee because they were saying a few things that were, off-color things that weren't acceptable, and they had been spoken to a number of times. It just wasn't working, and outside of that, they were great employees. But the reality is, if we don't hold them to a standard, then all of a sudden, all of my other employees are going to go, oh, well, these guys can get away with anything they want because they got disabilities, and that's not fair to them either, right? And the manager was really taken aback and hurt by the situation because the employee had been working with us for a while. But I explained to them, look, just like anybody else, people with disabilities need to learn hard life lessons as well. We did what we could do. We leveraged the resources we had, and it didn't work out. And that individual has learned how to be a professional in our organization, has learned to be an independent worker, has learned to really excel and find themselves professionally. So they're going to take away a lot from this experience, from the work they did on site. But just like any employee or individual, when something bad happens in your life, typically a lesson to be learned from, right? And our hope is that they learn from this lesson, and then their next job, they already can do the jobs great. They just learn to not say certain things that you're not supposed to say in the workplace.
Yeah, hopefully you don't keep having to learn the same lesson.
Right. But again, but we have these personal problems with all employees, right? And it's just how you deal with them. And again, it's making sure that if there is an issue, you do move on, or it's going to become a cancer just like any other employees, that's either saying the wrong things or being a jerk or not teamwork oriented.
So Jed, your shop is probably big enough that you have an HR department, right?
A very busy HR department. When you got 25 employees, there's always something.
Yeah, and Allie's 9 employees, so I know that you don't.
I have HR.
Do you?
Where's HR? Oh, he's not in here right now. HR's Wyatt. You can tell anything you want to him. He's going to keep your secrets.
Oh, your dog.
No, we don't. In all seriousness, we don't have an HR department. But also what Jed was saying, I know a small company, I love that you have both of us on, because Jed is a medium to large company. I'm a very small company, and you can do this in any size company.
Absolutely.
And I certainly want to make that point. One of the things Marshall harps on that small companies like myself are not great at is employee evaluations, right?
Yes.
We tend to kick those down the road and we don't do them. Well, one of the things that happens with any of my employees that come from the ARC is the director comes in once a month and hands me an evaluation form that I have to fill out. And so I sit there and I fill it out. She makes a copy. I keep a copy. She has a copy. But anything that's on there that is of a concern or needs improvement, she immediately goes and talks to that employee. And so I don't use that as a crutch. We have our own conversations, but I use it as a reinforcement. And it's a very useful tool. And, it brings to light, I should be doing this with all of my employees, maybe not once a month, but, frequently. But to that end, I also wanted to talk just a little bit about, growth and promotion through the company and things that way. Because yes, we talked about repetitiveness and repetitive training, and that's important because it is how but it's then also really easy when they get good at that job to keep them in that job. And as humans, we all want to grow always, and we always want to do new things. And, I talked about Tyler setting up the press. Well, I wish I could say that that was intentional, but that came about because Tyler's supervised by Cheyenne. Cheyenne's our press operator, and we run one Rock Auto. It's a 810. And so Cheyenne went on vacation, which meant I had to print. It's never a good day when Allie has to print, but I had to go print. But what I observed was Tyler was watching me really carefully, and he wasn't watching me to learn. He was watching to make sure I didn't screw up. Because what I didn't realize from Tyler is he's very, very observant. He may not be saying stuff, but he's watching everybody and he's learning from everybody from watching. And so I went to register a job, and I don't even remember what it was I was doing, but he's like, is that how you do it? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, Cheyenne does it this way. I'm like, damn it, I was doing it wrong. Right. And he caught me. And so then I'm like, it just made the light bulb go off. And I'm like, can you set up the press? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, set up this job. And I watched him set it up. And I'm like, holy crap. He's been watching. He's learned. He's figured this out. Right. And that's great. And now we can use him in that role. He'd gotten so good at what he did around the shop. I hadn't been looking for new opportunities for him. And that's shame on me. And so it really brought to light that I need to be more aware of that, and that he's seeking them out and he's looking for them. And then when Cheyenne got back, I said, hey, did you know Tyler can set up the press? And she's like, no, I had no idea he could set up the press. And so, but what has that done for my company or my business? Like, I have somebody that can be setting up a press while she can be going and burning or exposing screens, or maybe he can be burning and exposing screens and she can be setting up the press. And I just increased my production capacity. Absolutely. Because I don't have him singularly focused. So always, I would just say with any of your employees, but especially employees that in our mind, we tend to pigeonhole or keep in one place because they're really good at that job. We need to be finding those opportunities for everybody.
We're going to run out of time here, and we've got so much more to talk about. So before we do, I want to get into resources.
Yes.
So everybody watching this, some people are in America, some people in other countries. So not everything's the same, right? Where can somebody start? And like somebody said, hey, wow, this is a great idea. I want to start. What should they do?
Sure. And I think this is the most important part, because I think a lot of people don't know where to get started. So, and we have limited time, so I'll try to be very concise here. So disability employment service providers are nationwide, they're worldwide. Okay. You can find them through a number of channels to help support your business. Like any hiring agency, you should explore multiple. Some are going to be a better cultural fit for you. Some are going to work harder for you than others. Right. So the places that you can go to find these folks are, every state has a vocational rehabilitation office as part of the federal government that's dedicated to helping people with disabilities. Some of those vocational rehabilitation offices actually have those services where they can find job seekers and match make them, or some of them will just refer you to local providers. Every state is different, a bit different, right? Allie mentioned the ARC, which is a fantastic organization that has local chapters all over the world. Some of their chapters provide the services.
Real quick, is that the arc.arc.org?
Yeah,
yes.
The arc.org. They are a great, they have local chapters, so some of them provide those services themselves. And if they don't, they'll refer you to local providers who can also help you. APSE is another organization I mentioned we got the award from. That's APSE.org, I believe. We should have pulled that up. I believe it's .org. They're the National Disability Employment Service Provider trade organization. So they can also, yes, it's .org. They can also introduce you to local service providers in your area. So you've got APSE, you've got the ARC, you've got vocational rehabilitation offices. You can also just use our good friend Google and just type disability employment service providers in our area. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys about this. You can also reach out to me directly, Jed Seifert at Stakes Manufacturing through LinkedIn, and more than happy to also help connect you. And I'm sure Allie would as well.
Yeah, I want to mention one more resource because a lot of times military veterans will not identify as disabled and will not register and reach out to to APSI or the ARC or things that way. But there are also veteran hiring organizations, and most of the veterans using the veteran hiring organizations are also disabled. So consider that as well. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Allison Dart Banholzer, or you can email me directly at Ali, that's ALI, at mostdinc.com.
That's great. And we got a really fantastic comment here from Missy, who says, I love this topic. I'm the chair of a board for a deaf school. I want to work with both of your companies just because you're employing people of all abilities. So Missy, by the way, she's awesome. She's a promo distributor in Oklahoma. So I'm sure she can send you guys work. So,
we'll definitely connect us.
Yeah. And
Thank
I
you guys.
also want to mention this book. I don't know. This is my favorite book I've read this year, by the way. It's called The Song of Significance by Seth Godin. This is, I read a book a week, and this is by far, what is all that noise?
I don't know.
This by far is my favorite book this year. It's all about doing more with your business than just making a profit.
Marshall,
right?
say the book again. I think we cleared up the technical
It's
problem.
called The Song of Significance by Seth Godin.
Okay.
Right? And it's a wonderful book. And by far, it's my favorite book that I've read this year. It's not that thick. You can read it in one sitting, but if you're me, I read a lot.
And one other thing, if everybody on this who's listening, watching, all that wants to do one thing, make sure your websites are ADA compliant. Make sure they're navigable by somebody who's blind. Navigable.
And what does that mean, Allie? And what do we need to do?
I'm not an expert. I can direct you to people who are. Jed may have more knowledge and information, but there are individuals out there that can help you make sure that your website is readable by most individuals who are blind have readers on their computer that will help them read knowledge and information online or documents and things that way. Make sure your website is readable by those.
How do we know? I mean, is there a app that we can use to send the link to say, hey, get a grade my site?
Yeah, Marshall, I will do the research and get you more information, but you can Google.
Okay.
I had somebody reach out to me and just say, hey, did you know that your site is not ADA compliant? It is a law that's coming down in a
Sure.
Jed probably has the answer right here.
No, I was just going to say, I got to jump. Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, thanks, Jed.
I really appreciate it. And guys, the one thing I'll leave you with is not one size fits all for anything. You don't have to figure out the jobs that work at your position. Call the disability employment service providers. They'll evaluate your business and figure out where the best fit is. It might not be picking up boxes. It might be data entry. Who knows where it might be? Feel free to reach out to me if you need any help as well. And thank you guys again for having me. Really appreciate it.
Jed, thank you so much. I'm glad you and Allie connected. I'm really looking forward to hear when you both and Missy connect, because what this connection, this is not just something like I said, a feel good. Now what we're doing, I think for our industry, we may not know, this is a real labor solution for our industry. Yeah. And that's incredible. Thank you, Jed.
Thanks, Jed.
And don't forget, within our industry is also Unite Together, which is a movement for inclusion and diversity within the industry.
They do a good job. So, we were having such fun talking. What we forgot to do is we forgot to share the GST Pulse magazine real quick. So before we go, I want to give that a shout out. So if you're looking for supplies and stuff, go to gogsg.com. They've got a great sales brochure called The Pulse, which is all types of fantastic stuff. So just want to throw that out there before we go. And then also, it's not too late to meet us in New Orleans.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people that are on the call here today are going. I know, by the way, Allie's speaking at it, and I'll be the host. So, Allie, why don't you talk about Shirt Lab New Orleans real quick before we go?
Yeah, it's definitely the place you need to be on July 28th and 29th. Fabulous networking. I have gotten more out of Shirt Lab to improve and grow my business than any other industry event, whether that's trade shows or whatnot. Mike Michalowicz is our keynote. He is the author of Profit First, and is going to be speaking actually on building and retaining teams. We've got presentations on customer collaboration. I am doing a Six Sigma project, which is how to get your employees to take on projects within your company to improve your company, all those things that you're never able to get done. We have a VIP dinner. We got Jay Bassell. We got Jenna from Stalls. There's hotel room blocks, but that goes away today, right, Marshall?
It goes away today. Now, you can still book a hotel, but we have a special price, which is $110, which is pretty good for New Orleans, I think. And it's right across the street from the venue. Okay, so
somebody that travels all the time, 110 is a great hotel price,
deal.
no matter where you're.
Look, the picture's back.
Yeah, we got Lori Feldman doing drip marketing automation, and Tom talking referrals, and of course I talked about Mike Michalowicz, and of course we have the Shirt Lab playlist that you just have to tune into.
So we want to thank our sponsors real quick, and GSG is one of them.
Yep.
But anyway, and Easy Way also, since Alan's here. So thanks so much for everyone for Shirt Lab. We appreciate you. Get your tickets. It's going to be a fantastic event. And
I'm excited. I've made all my reservations. I actually made air flights yesterday. So
you can just go to shirtlablive.com as the address there.
Yep.
So any last minute words, Allie, you want to leave us with?
Just do it.
Yeah, Alan?
I want to thank again, like I said, they almost got lost in the shuffle, but our sponsor, GSG, even though this was such a great topic, man, everybody share it. I'm going to repost it again so that people can listen to it again on podcast. And I hopefully inspired somebody. Let's see what you do on this labor crisis we're in. Here's a solution, on there. Let's work at it. And man, it was exciting. I am glad, and we need to do this again.
Yeah, and
I think beat this drum all over.
If something good happens from this, like if you get inspired and do it, we would love to know what happened. So
Missy, definitely get in touch with them. I'd love to see what this little partnership does. And incredible. And give us first shout out on it, man. Let us take it to the world. And I'm just very excited about what can happen on that.
Yeah, and I am happy to be a resource. I don't know it all. If I don't know it, I will absolutely dive in to try to find it. So feel free to reach out to me, anybody.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone. Thanks, Allie. Thanks, Jed. Thanks, Alan. And we'll catch you next week. Allie,
Solutions. So, yeah.